I will be taking you through chapter 5 of the book of Genesis. But before I take you through chapter 5 of the book of Genesis, I just wanted to remind you of the whole of creation, because this is the last chapter of creation before we get into the story of Noah. What happened in creation is that, according to the Bible, God created the world, and He created it in 5 days. He created man on the 6th day, and on the 7th day He rested. When He created man, He created him in His image because He loved him, and He gave him all of creation to subdue it under His feet, to name it, and whatever it is that He names, the name of that thing was, whether it's an animal or a fruit or a tree, that was His name. Man had control over the world except for one thing. God gave man a commandment that he may not eat from the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. After a long time, God saw that man was lonely. He decided to give him a wife by the name of Eve. When man understood that Eve was bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh, he called him woman, and he loved Eve very much so. Eve, with the lack of understanding of God's commandment, listened to a serpent, and the serpent turned Eve against God and the ways of the Lord. And subsequently, Eve ate from the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, which God commanded them that they may not eat. Eve convinced Adam to do the same, and Adam ate, irrespective of the commandment that God gave him. When God appeared in His spirit in the garden, the man hid, and God decided to punish the man because of his disobedience. Man was able to realize good and evil, and he saw that being naked was not right, so he hid under fig trees and leaves. God decided to make man clothing out of leather and punish him by making man work very hard for the fruit that he would eat, making women suffer in childbearing. And of course, the serpent was also given his own punishment, to crawl on the ground with his stomach. He also put enmity between the serpent and the man and the woman and their generation forever. Now Adam and Eve left the garden, and as they left the garden, Adam and Eve got to realize how hard it is to be away from the garden. They got to realize how enormous it was that God loved them and cared for them freely each and every day. They got to understand that life is hard outside of God's glory. Nonetheless, God blessed them with children, Cain and Abel. After an offering that God commanded Cain and Abel to make, Abel brought God the best of his offering, his flock, the fat of the sheep, and the best meat, while Cain brought God an offering, but the Lord rejected it because it was not good enough. Cain became very bitter and angry, and he decided that he would kill his brother Abel. And that's where we are. Now, when we look at chapter 4, we see that Cain was then punished by the Lord. And now we're going to continue chapter 4 13, and then go all the way to chapter 5, verse 32. Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground and from your face. I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." Then the Lord said to him, "No, not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold." And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest any who found him should attack him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. When he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad fathered Mehujael, and Mehujael fathered Methushael, and Methushael fathered Lamech. And Lamech took 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. Ada bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and live and have livestock. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and pipe. Zillah also bore Tibal Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. The sister of Tibal Cain was Naamah. Lamech said to his wife, Ada and Zillah, "Hear my voice, you wives of Lamech. Listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge is 7-fold, then Lamech's is 77-fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. For she said, God has appointed for me another offspring instead of Abel, for Cain killed him. To Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. This is the book of the genealogy. Now we are at chapter 5. We have just finished off chapter 4. We begin chapter 5. Thank you for listening to the background of the whole story of creation. Now we are entering chapter 5, the genealogy of Adam. This is the book of the genealogy of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female he created them, and he blessed them and named them men. When they were created, Adam had lived 130 years. He fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. The days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days that Adam lived were 930 years. He died. When Seth had lived 105 years, he fathered Enosh. Seth lived after he fathered Enosh 807 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he fathered Kenan. Enosh lived after he fathered Kenan 815 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he fathered Mehalalel. Kenan lived after he fathered Mehalalel 840 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. When Mahalalel had lived 65 years, he fathered Jared. Mahalalel lived after he fathered Jared 830 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he fathered Enoch. Jared lived after he fathered Enoch 800 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he fathered Methuselah 300 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So he did not die, and nobody knows where his grave was. They just knew that God took him alive, like Elijah. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived after he fathered Lamech 782 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son, and called his name Noah, saying, Out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. Lamech lived after he fathered Noah 595 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. After Noah was 500 years old, Noah fathered Shem,